Hi there, this is Janet, and today I want to talk about making life easier for your beta readers, your critique partners, and also for submitting to publishers and agents, and it might even help a bit with Kindle Direct. Now, there are going to be some nuanced differences for some of these, but a lot of this is very similar. So when you start this from the beginning, the way that I'm going to tell you, you're not going to have to fix things later. It's going to make life easier. And other things are designed to make your life easier. So what I've got here is a one-page manuscript, and it's a really terrible one. It's not meant to be good, and it is, so we've got these chapters, and we've got a title. All right, and we got the end, and we've got a few lines here. It's not much. Now, what I'm going to do here is the first thing I'm going to do is when you submit to publishers and to editors and agents, believe it or not, when they're editing stuff, they are destroying the planet and they will almost always want to print it. Personally, I find that insane, but you do need to set it up for them to want to print it. You also want to make sure that it's a font that they can use, the font that they recognize and the font that they've got. So this is not the time for wacky fonts. Now this happens to be Arial, which they should have because everybody should have Arial. But they're going to prefer a what's it called, a true type font, where the characters are all pretty much the same width. And they're also going to prefer one that's got serifs, and this is a sans serif font. So I'm going to change this. I prefer, and they prefer, by the way, either Times New Roman or Courier. And I'm gonna choose Courier because I think it's easier to see on the page. And they're virtually always going to want it to be 12 point and double spaced. So here's what we're going to do. I'm on a Windows keyboard, but if you're on a Mac, usually what you need to do is instead of hitting Control, you're going to hit the Apple key. But I'm going to be giving you instructions for Windows keyboard because that's what I've got. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control A, and that selects everything. If this was a 1,000-page document, it would still select everything. And I want to change this font and its spacing and everything else. I'm going to shoot over here where it says Arial. I'm just going to start typing, and there's Courier. Hit that. I don't want it to be 12 point, or I could just pull down on it, by the way. Over here, now I'm going to just interrupt this for a moment. This is either the most recent version of Word, or it's close to it. And for most people, if you've got this this ribbon, which is this thing over here, if you've got that, it's pretty much going to all be the same way to do it, although it might be distributed slightly differently. So right here under paragraph, we've got line and paragraph spacing. I'm going to change that to 2. There you go. We're going to save this bad boy, hitting Control S, or if you like hitting the icon or whatever, you do you. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to create a style. The reason why I'm going to create a style, they're up here. Styles are up here. They're lovely, but they're going to be problematic because look at all these styles. They're all sans serif, and we don't want that. So I'm going to hit heading 2. I like heading 1 rather. I'm sorry, for title, and I like heading 2 for chapters. And I don't like using title. Title tends to be very large. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you like something different. Now, here's why you use styles. Is all the way over here. This is what's called the navigation pane. And you can see by making this style 2, this heading 1 rather, I'm sorry, it goes over here, and heading 2 goes over here. And if I had a heading 3, it would go here, and it would be smaller, smaller, smaller. And you can see how you're getting an outline. All right. If this, so you can do a search on this. If I search for the word chapter, there's 5 results. It highlights them nicely for me, which it would do anyway. And it would also show me whatever pages, if there's more than one page, would show that. And it also show me the results, although if there's more than 100 results, it'll say there are too many results to show. This is extraordinarily useful because while this is a one-pager, and so we can navigate around it really easily, when you've got a document that's 100 pages long, 1,000 pages long, whatever, you can see how hard it can be to find stuff. So by using headings, you can find where your chapters break. And that makes life a heck of a lot easier. It makes your life much, much easier. But we still have this stuff, it's in Arial. So we're going to select all again. And all I'm going to do over here is I'm going to change this to Courier. I'm not going to change the size because, as you can see, here's heading 1 and it's bigger, and heading 2, which is smaller. Now I'm going to create some styles. So now the first thing I want to do, I'm going to do this on heading 1. And by selecting heading 1, the only time I've got heading 1, which is over here, I'm going to pull down right here. See this this arrow with the line right above it where it says more. I'm going to go down here, create a style. It says style 1. So we're going to call this publishing title. You hit modify just to make sure everything is copacetic. It's in Courier. It's a 20. It's automatic, and we're going to add it to the styles category gallery. I'm sorry. We're going to automatically update it. Now I want it only in this document, and because if I say new documents based on this template, then this is going to turn into my default, and I don't want that because I use Word for work. Hit OK. Everything's cool. So now here I've got this heading 1, but I've also got publishing heading 1. Over here we're going to make a style again. We call this, very imaginatively, publishing heading 2. All right. Modify. Make sure everything is groovy. It's Courier 16. Everything else is the same. I'm going to hit OK. And now also for this is the body of the piece. Same thing. I'm going to create a style, and we're just going to call this publishing. Modify. Courier 12. Double space. Hit OK. So all this stuff is right in front of us. All that's right there. And you can see how you get this nice where it'll tell you the name right below it. Hit that, hit this, whatever. So you can find your styles really fast. So that if by accident you make something the wrong style, like whoops, that's heading 3 and it's the old heading 3. We don't like that. We can go all the way over here. We can just find the one that says publishing and hit that, and it goes right back. So pretty cool. Let's save that bad boy. Now, since this is, well, I'm sorry. Anyway, we're going to, I want to move and do something else. So now let's, we want to do something with our pages. Now here's the first thing I want to do is I'm gonna make a second page because this is it'll be easier to see once we do this. So I need this style over here because it's another this is another chapter. So we're just gonna do that, and let's add a page break here, which I do on Word by hitting Insert and Page Break. Okay, so there's one page and here's 2 pages. So if by the way, now you see on the navigation pane, if I search for the word chapter, it gives it on 2 pages because there's 2 pages where the word chapter is. By the way, if you lose that navigation page, no problem. All you got to do is hit Control F as in Frank, which stands for find, and there it is. So now we've got 2 pages to this, and technically the truth is we should be making every chapter. We should be putting a page break between each chapter, which I'll do in a moment. But what I want to do here is I want to format the pages. So I'm going to insert a header and a footer. So I want to insert a header. The header I'm going to insert, oops, let's move that down here. Hard to see on this pane. So right here where it says edit header. And I'm going to insert page number. I'm going to put it top of the page. I want it all the way on the right. Here's what I want to write in front of that. I want to put my name. And I'm going to put the title of whatever thing I'm writing. And then page. It doesn't matter really too much if this is not the same font, but we like having the same font. So let's just change that to Courier. I'm going to change that to Courier. I just did that off the page, but that's easy enough to do. I also, now we look here, see second page, it looks like that. Now what I'd like to do is change it so that the first and second pages are different. So in the header, let's edit the header again. It says different first page. So now that gets rid of it, which we prefer, actually. We want to see it here, but not up there. And now I can close that. So right over here, it says close header and footer. Now up here, I'm going to hit enter so I get another line. And by the way, that's going to give me the same formatting. We don't want that. So I'm going to change that format to this, which is what I prefer. And when you present a manuscript, you need to put your name, your address, your phone number, and your email address on this stuff, unless it's a blind submission. If it's blind submission, then you don't want any of that stuff. And by the way, if it's blind submission, you've got to change this. You've got to take your name off. So we'll just have name, address, phone, email. Okay. I need all that stuff. What I also need up here is, and I need, and I'm going to put this actually up one more, is I'm going to shoot this all the way over here because I want to be on that side. And I want about words. What does that mean? What this means is that I want to put in a field. What's a field and why do you want this? Virtually always they want to see a word count. And the truth is you want to see a word count because it gives you an idea just how big this big the monster is. Like it or not, there are some limitations in terms of the size of things that can be sold. Fantasy usually can go up to something like 150,000 words, and don't quote me on this because those numbers fluctuate and I probably have the number wrong. But the bottom line is that usually fantasy can go longer, but other things tend to be shorter. And if you look at your books, either on Kindle or just paper books or stuff like that, you'll see that it's true that some books tend to be shorter than others. And if the market is going to bear a shorter book and you've got something long, then if you know the word count before you even send it, then you've got a much better chance of getting your act in gear editing wise and getting it right for what they're going to want to see. But instead of counting or always hitting word count, what we want to do is put a field in here. So here's how you do it in Word. So I'm going to go up into the ribbon and I'm going to hit insert. And then I want to go to quick parts, and it's all the way over here. Quick parts, select field. And the field I want is called num words, N-U-M words, right there. I don't need to format it. I just want to hit OK, and there it is. And it does the count for me. If I add a word, so address, street, let's say. So now I've added a word. So this should be 103 words, right? If I select it, right click it, and say update field, it gave me 2 words. All right, there you go. But it's going to count them. So as you can see, this is not a perfect system, but it's pretty damn good. It's good enough. And that's also why we use the word about, so that we get it pretty much right. This field, by the way, is going to be counting when you write your name, address, phone number, and all that stuff. So there's like an extra 20, 25 words or so in there that are not really right. It will not count, by the way. It won't count this part where it says page 2 and stuff like that. So don't worry about that. Now let's go in here and we're going to add, I'm going to just insert some page breaks. And unfortunately, I got to do those manually, but they're easy. And I want to do that right before the end. So what I'm going to do also is I'm going to format all my chapters. All the times when I say the word chapter, I'm going to format it just like this. Let's go back to home. And I want this formatting right here. By the way, I can also do this with the format painter, which is over here. Since this is the right format, I'm going to go all the way over here, hit format painter. Now I'm going to scroll down, select that part, and there it goes. And it just formatted it exactly the way I wanted it. Let's just keep painting that format. Format painter, paint that. And what I also want to do is paint it here. Now, let's go back into our navigation bar. And there you go. And here's everything. Here's all the chapters. You can find them all easily. And you can find the end. So you can shoot all the way down to the end with no trouble at all. And all the way here up at the title, you've gotten to the top. And you don't have to shoot all the way up to where your name is or anything like that. What we also need to do with the title is we need to center it. and we need to put your name, but you don't want your name in title case. You want it in just regular old case, but you want it centered. So I'm just going to put my name, Gershen-Siegel, and whatever that title is, whatever the title is, we don't care. I'm going to save this while we're here. Do you need the word by? I don't think you do. I think you can live without that. So let's see if there's anything else that I need to do. So, okay, so now we've formatted everything properly. I'm going to save this one time. And now what I'm also going to do is going to do save as. File, save as. And I am going to save this as, I'm going to save it to my desktop. And I'm going to, instead of saving it as a Word document, I'm going to save this as a Word template. So let's just, and I'm actually going to change this to publishing template. All right. And save. Usually it's going to like it. Yes, save it. All right. So this is also now, this is now a publishing template. And what I'm going to do, and what I can do here is all of this stuff I can just reuse over and over again. So if I close this and I go back into my my desktop where I've put, I don't know where I put, where we put the publishing template. So if I go back to this, I can also create a new file. If I wanted to create something with the template, I can create a new file. And I can base this on my publishing template. It's somewhere in here. Not filing. Okay, so if I want to open up the template, I'm going to go here into my, it ended up in my OneDrive actually. And let's see if I can find that. And in OneDrive under Documents, I've got Custom Office Templates, and there it is. If I select that, then I've got, it looks a hell of a lot like what I just showed you. All right, this is the template, and it'll open up as document 1. Now I can move that template anywhere I want to. I'm not going to save that because I don't care, because I don't want to keep that. But so we're going to go back to this one. Help your beta readers out. So here's the original document that I've got. Birth of protagonist. I hate you, she said, stuff like that. So now let's talk a little bit about some of this editing that we're going to go into. First things first. This first chapter is probably fine, but the second one has issues. First things first. There's we want to have a separate paragraph for each speaker. So he talks and then she talks. So if we just hit enter, there's your paragraph. We're good enough. That's the first thing we want to do. Secondly is this is what we want to do is use dialogue tags. And dialogue tags is you need to you're going to separate your quotes from the part where it says he said, she said. Now there's a bit of a difference between British and American English. I'm an American, so I'm going to use American. So I'm going to put a comma here instead of a period. And now this doesn't get capitalized, so we're just going to change that to she said. This is correct. This is the way it should look. If we go down here and we don't have an ending quotation mark because we're changing paragraphs here. Now, the truth is, when you change paragraphs, you're actually supposed to start. You're supposed to end the first paragraph with no quotation mark, and you're supposed to start the second one with a quotation mark. So already I had problems here. But be that as it may, my personal preference is to not do this. And here's why. Because if you're changing paragraphs while someone is talking, they're probably talking a lot. And in fiction, when they're talking that much, you can probably, and you probably should, put some sort of action in the middle here. So let's give this an extra quotation mark. We know it's him talking instead of her. And we can say he adjusted his tie. People do all sorts of things when they're speaking. And when you're speaking a lot, I mean, in real life, what do? We gesture, we take a break, we take a breath, we drink some water, we clear our throats, we ask for questions, whatever. I think it looks better. I think it also reads better, and I think it tends to read better just in general for anybody else who's reading it, because then you also don't lose the thread of the narrative, and you give a little bit more description as to what's going on. Now, actions as speech. That's this part here. He growled. She chortled, whatever. How many times do people talk like this? Are these correct? Technically, they are. But usually, you just want to use either the word said or the word asked. And the reason why is because we don't want this part to get too important. What we want to be important is either his actions or his speech, or her speech for that matter. But the part where something comes out of somebody's mouth, it's usually better for that to be as plain as possible. So she said, by the way, how often do people chortle? I have no idea. So that's what we want to do here. We really don't want to draw attention too much to the way that people talk. Does this mean you can never ever use an action as speech? Of course not. You know, these are not hard and fast, but they tend to look weird if you do it too much. So pick your moments. And some things are better than others, because like whispered, I think, is a really good one, because otherwise you're saying he talked softly or he said it softly or something like that. And that's a good descriptive term. Asked is absolutely, it's a fantastic descriptive term. But after that, then we get kind of wonky. It gets a little weird. You know, he questioned, she exclaimed, you know, that sort of thing. If you put an exclamation point there, then we know she exclaimed it, you know? And by the way, once these people are better defined, you should be able to go through at least some of your dialogue without any dialogue tag at all. If she and he are well defined and you can really tell the difference between the two of them, you don't always need to say he said, she said. You know, one of the ways that I do this, particularly if I'm writing romance, is I make somebody a pet names person. You do that, then one person says darling and the other one doesn't, guess who's talking? So let's go to the next chapter. As it were, the characters are taken to a bar. This is passive voice. Okay? Passive voice is proper English. There's nothing wrong with it. However, it tends to look weird. Here's where passive voice is awesome. Passive voice is awesome when someone is in a subordinate position, when they are a victim, when they are a submissive, when they are a slave. Probably a child is good for that as well. If the characters are using their own agency, then put it into active voice. Active voice here would be the characters went to a bar. So here the verb doesn't have a form of to be, and it directly goes to the characters. Whereas here, the characters are taken, so it's got a form of to be, to a bar. This actually implies that there's another actor in here. Now, if the characters are being kidnapped and taken to the bar, then yeah, this is awesome. This first sentence, this is grand and glorious and great. But if they're just going to a bar, just have them go to a bar. In particular, in action sequences, oh my God, please try not to use passive voice if you can at all avoid it. If your hero is, struggling from his bonds in order to get out of them, then passive voice is actually not so bad. And you can even sort of flip things in an interesting way by shifting it over to active voice the moment he's freed himself or she's freed herself. So you can do this. So this is an incredibly subtle way of signaling to the reader that the person has power, has gotten power. Chapter 3. She said that she thought he was tired, but that was a mistake. Instead, she thought she should have felt that that's actually a typo, was a mistake that she made often. All right. So first off, we have a typo here. This typo didn't come up with spell check because this is a real word. This is why reading closely is really important. So let's change that to was, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Secondly, we've got an extra space here. Oops, we don't want that. We just want one space. Should you put 2 spaces after a period? That used to be because of typesetting. But typesetting these days is done all with computers, so you don't need to do this. Put 1 space. If you put 2 spaces, you screw up by mistake. Hey, any publisher worth their salt is going to do a find and replace on every manuscript and take anything where there's 2 spaces and have them find 2 spaces and change them to 1. So don't sweat it. But also don't go insane saying, oh my God, I need 2 spaces, or ask the question or whatever. No. Don't bother. Do not bother. This is all done by computers. If they want 2 spaces, they'll add them. If they don't want them, they won't. You're cool. Either way. The other big problem with this is, so this is 31 words. How many times do we say the word that? 1, 2, 3, 4. We say that 4 times in 31 words. I'm sorry. So that's 1/8 of the time. Now, there's no hard and fast number for this. This is not a formula. But you can see when you've got the word that in so many places, it's really repetitive. The word that, of course, is a perfectly logical word. It's a normal word. It's great. We can use that word. It's cool. But the problem with using it too much is it looks really repetitive. And furthermore, it also shows that the structure of your language is repetitive. So instead of saying, she said that she thought she was tired, you don't need the word that. She said she thought he was tired. Good enough. It's a total pad word. It's a filler word. If you're writing for NaNoWriMo, where you need to put 50,000 words on a page in 1 month, add all the that's you please. Get that sucker to 50,000 however you can. But when you're editing, take those things out. It doesn't mean that, there I go, Ed, is always wrong. Of course not. And here, it's probably good, but that was a mistake. You could actually change this to, but it was a mistake, or, but this was a mistake. Probably either of those would be fine. Or just keep it, or take it out. If you took it out, though, you do need some sort of a subject here. So, or you could even say she was mistaken. You could say something like that. So you've got choices here, and you can still use them, but it gets less repetitive if you take some of them out. It's one of the easiest ways to do a very quick down and dirty first edit is to search for how many times you use the word that in a manuscript and start scotching however ones that you can, because you'll start to see some of these patterns in how you turn a phrase. And if you turn the phrase exactly the same way all the time, it's not that interesting. So maybe let's change this. It was a mistake that she made off. Yeah, this is also passive voice. So, she made this error. Let's even say error instead of mistake, so we're not too repetitive that way. She made often. She made this error. Whoops, sorry. She made this error often. Change that. See? I'm screwing up right on camera. Instead, she should have felt that he was a lizard. I know this is a horrible manuscript. Or you could change this to, instead, she should have believed. Yeah, I can spell. He was a wizard. He was a lizard, not a wizard. So, and by the way, if you wanted wizard and you wrote lizard here, yeah, that's a typo right there, right? This now reads much better. It is 26 words instead of 31. So I got rid of 5 words in here. She said she thought he was tired, but that was a mistake. Instead, she should have believed he was a wizard. She made this error often. It reads better. Yeah, it's still garbage, but it's better. Chapter 5. The aliens were very big, and their hands were very small. They had softly talked, and they had walked closely behind the protagonist. Ay, 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 ay. Welcome to the land of adverbs. If you have read Stephen King on writing, that you know how much he hates adverbs. And he says that in a chapter where he litters it with adverbs. Adverbs are perfectly good forms of speech. There's nothing wrong with them. They're totally awesome. Every piece of writing, everything that you can put down on a page that, that fulfills, that gets your story across, and that is basically correct grammatically, it's totally fine. The problem with using adverbs isn't that adverbs are bad. It's that, just like with the word that, you tend to show a repetitiveness, and you can also show a lack of imagination in your phraseology. There's a big word for you. Very big. Oh my God. The word big has a ton of synonyms. Oh my God. Big probably has more synonyms than most things, because it's a word that people use in so many languages because it's such a useful term. So you've got big, huge, large, gigantic, jumbo, king size, queen size, plus size, enormous, colossal. Did I say gigantic? Maybe not. You get the idea. There's tons of ways to say this. Or colossal. Is that right? We're going to find out. Colossal? Hey, it's spelled right. And their hands were very small. Small also has a bunch of synonyms, although there are fewer. So what are we saying? Their hands are tiny, junior size, dwarfed, midget size. Be careful with some of this terminology. You want to make sure that you're not putting out a slur or anything like that. But there's nothing wrong with saying that it's dwarf size. We do say that like a dwarf size animal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying that. If you want to get away from that, you could say their hands were microscopic, and maybe they are. Or let's say tiny, teeny weeny. There's a lot of stuff that actually is a little bit more slangy, but it works nicely. Their hands were tiny. They had softly talked. They whispered. They had whispered. Okay, there's a good place to put this. And they had walked closely behind the protagonist, and they had followed. Once again, we're getting rid of the padding. We're making this a better read. So we got rid of all of those verys. Once again, there's nothing wrong with the word very. There's nothing wrong with an adverb. Most adverbs, aside from words like quite and very and rather, most of them have an ly at the end of them. So you can do a big search for those as well. When after you looked for that, look for those as well. But again, they're perfectly good words. Just don't use them too much. And it makes a lot of sense, and it's a lot easier when in one paragraph you're not using them as frequently. So the aliens were colossal and their hands were tiny. They had whispered and they had followed the protagonist. Once again, like I said, this is garbage as I'm writing it, but it's still better looking garbage right now. What else can I say? I think I'm done. So this is basically what I do for myself, for readers, and for publishing. And by the way, let's update this. So we're going to right click it, hit update field. Hey, we've got actually a slight increase in the number of words when we got right down to it. This is a document now that you can send to a publisher because it's got your name, address, phone number, and it's got the word count, and it also has the title and the page number on every page in case things get separated from each other. You can also send it to a publisher because it is in doublespace, and because it's in one of these fonts that they like, which is Courier, and it's in 12 point, which is they almost always want. It is something that you can use for formatting because you're using styles. So that means that if you decide that you want a style to be different when you're putting this on Kindle or something like that. Let's say you didn't like Courier. Maybe this is Courier 16. You really wanted Courier 17. You can redefine this. And then you can change it where it's listed. All right. So that once this is redefined, once this heading is redefined, you can redefine it throughout the entire script. It's also an easier to read manuscript, and it's easier to find stuff, so that as we go along through this manuscript, the person who is helping you with it, they can find out where they are. They can get a handle on how far they need to go instead of doing a hunt for the word chapter. So anyway, this has gone on way longer than it probably should have, but I hope that this is helpful. And I'm not picking on anybody in particular, believe me, I've done a lot of beta reading recently, and people have unbelievably fantastic imaginations, and it's been such a treat. This is just a small thing to hopefully make everybody's life easier and to help you down the line. Thanks. Bye-bye.